How old is too old to work in government?
Clearly.
It is elsewhere, too. But it is a question that's been on the minds of many Americans in recent years. When Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 as a 70-year-old, he became the oldest person in U.S. history to enter the Oval Office. President Biden broke that record when he won in 2020. He was 77 back then. And right now, he is obviously our nation's oldest sitting president. At 78, Trump is set to break the White House record yet again. By the way, age can mean life experience, knowledge, and the kinds of insight that are unique to having a long lens on the human condition. But it can also entail health issues, acuity struggles, and the general slowdown that tends to come during the sunset years, as they call them.
True. Take the example of Texas Republican Congresswoman Kay Granger. Now, over the weekend, reporting emerged that the 81-year-old had not voted on the House floor since July, and she's been living in a senior facility in Fort Worth. Her son told the Dallas Morning News she's been having, quote, some dementia issues, but is not living in the facility's memory care wing. Granger, who retires from her seat next week, did not confirm that diagnosis, but in a statement said she'd been, quote, navigating some unforeseen health challenges. She's one of 24 current members of Congress who are 80 years of age or older, and the revelations about her health are set against the reality that most Americans support both age and term limits for federally elected officials. So for the bigger picture is what is our ability to trust our politicians once they kind of get beyond a certain age and do their jobs to the fullest.
Joining us now, CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane to shed some light. Scott, the Granger situation right away reminded me of Senator Dianne Feinstein towards the end of her time, the late senator, I should say. We've also seen Nancy Pelosi recently take a spill. She's in her 80s. Mitch McConnell had moments as well, both health-wise, physically, and questions about his mental acuity. So what's the discussion there on Capitol Hill? Should age be a factor here as far as limiting our senators and our members of Congress when it comes to leadership?
Hey, Dana and Michelle, if you went into a laboratory to build a job that is well suited for somebody who's in her 70s, 80s, or 90s, member of Congress would be the one you'd build because you need long-tenured relationships. You need decades of knowledge because you have to craft policy on obscure and challenging things. You need a lot of life experience. You need a lot of institutional memory. This is just the type of job you want somebody who's been around 30, 40, 50 years for. And relationships go so far in Washington, and people who've been around 30, 40, 50 years have some long-tenured relationships. But it also requires presence. You have to be on the floor of the House or Senate to vote. You can't do so remotely. It is a physically taxing job. It doesn't look that way on TV, but you get 10 to 20,000 steps a day working in Congress. 10 to 20,000 a day. Not easy for those who have mobility challenges. What's more, people in their 70s and 80s who've served in Congress have been around so long, sometimes that becomes a political challenge. And we've seen that over the past few weeks, where House Democrats made moves to oust their most senior 80-something or 70-something leaders for a newer generation, saying the old ideas aren't working politically. So there's a political liability to that as well at times. But this is an age-old problem in Congress. It's been around as long as the Congress has.
You've been on the Hill quite some time, Scott, to yourself. Peel back for us the curtain on the team surrounding these congressmen and women. I mean, how are they able to keep these kinds of situations in private from the public?
Yeah, this is one of those jobs that's as transparent as you want it to be, and it's as opaque as you want it to be. You don't have to release your health records to run for the Congress. You don't have to keep your constituents apprised of how you're feeling, what's going on. You're basically running a small business. You hire your own staff. You don't inherit them from Uncle Sam. You hire 18 people to work in the U.S. House, 30, 40, 50 if you run in the U.S. Senate, but they're your people. And you can hire them and fire them at will. So you can keep your cards close. You can keep information limited if you want to. That's why there have been questions about why is somebody absent over the past few weeks? Why hasn't he or she been here? You can't always demand an answer to those questions. What's more, you can communicate with your constituents so simply now. You can pick up your phone and type a message. You can send out an email. You don't have to go on the stump like you did in the 19th century and early in the 20th century, pound the pavement and see your constituents to get a message to them. That makes all of this easier for somebody who may want to downplay any challenges he or she's facing.
And Scott, real quickly before we let you go, it brings up the idea here of term limits. You know, you mentioned it earlier how experience matters, but where is that debate right now in the sense of, yeah, you want somebody with experience, but at some point, if you can't do the job anymore, perhaps you shouldn't be there.
Some states have done that with their legislatures. Michigan, perfect example, Dana, where they've done that, and there are pros and cons. The pros are you have a check to ensure a new generation from time to time. The downside is you lose all that institutional memory, and you're teaching people from scratch every year.
Yeah, and you can't always determine. It's not just the number, it's each individual as well.
All right, Scott, thank you.